Imagine for a moment you're embarking on something big. Maybe it's just planning your own budget for a really big personal project.
Right.
Or maybe you're overseeing the construction of a huge skyscraper or a complex bridge, maybe even a hospital.
Yeah, massive undertakings.
Exactly. Whatever the scale, big or small, the question is always there, isn't it? How do you make sure all that money isn't just, spent, but spent wisely, spent effectively?
You're keeping control.
How do you keep a really firm, transparent hand on the finances when there are literally thousands, maybe millions of moving parts, materials, labor? It's immense.
It is. And if you don't manage it meticulously, well, things can go wrong fast.
Yeah.
Ambitious visions can turn into financial headaches pretty quickly.
You've really hit on a core challenge there, this whole idea of financial stewardship. It's as old as building itself, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about, Roman aqueducts, medieval cathedrals,
Yeah.
controlling costs, managing the resources, making sure you get fair value. It's always been absolutely critical for success.
Right.
Without that solid financial oversight, even the most brilliant engineering idea can just crumble under the weight of unexpected costs or, poorly managed budget.
Totally. And what's really fascinating, and maybe not widely known everywhere, is that in many parts of the world, there's this kind of unsung hero, a highly specialized profession, dedicated precisely to this kind of financial guardianship in construction. They're basically the undisputed experts on construction cost and contracts.
An independent voice.
Exactly, providing that objective view on a project's financial health. So today we're doing a deep dive into the world of this professional, the quantity surveyor, or QS.
Yeah, the QS. And our mission today for you listening is to really introduce you to this vital profession. We'll dig into its history, which is pretty interesting, actually.
Where did it come from?
We'll trace its roots back, see how it emerged during a time of huge engineering leaps. Then we'll break down what they actually do.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, the core functions across a project's life. And, crucially, we'll contrast this role with how things are typically handled in the U.S. construction system, which is often quite different.
That's the key comparison, isn't it?
It is. The goal is for you to have that kind of aha moment, to understand how different places, different professional structures can evolve to tackle the same fundamental problems, controlling cost, ensuring financial integrity. It's a shortcut, really, to getting informed about a vital but often overlooked part of global construction.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Construction, like you said, it's been around forever. Pyramids, cathedrals, millennia of building stuff. So managing costs isn't new. But the formal quantity surveyor, this distinct, independent professional role, where did that specific idea come from? It feels like it has a different starting point.
It really does. While, the idea of measuring work, figuring out its value, that's ancient.
Yeah.
The formalized role of the QS as we recognize it today, that really came together in the UK.
Okay, the UK.
Specifically in the 19th century. That era was just a massive period of change for construction, a huge shift away from sort of traditional craft methods towards much larger, way more complex engineering projects.
Oh, so we're not saying someone was called a QS back when they built the pyramids or the Colosseum.
No, not in that formalized, independent way. But you're right to think about the underlying concept. Measuring, valuing work. The need for that has parallels way back.
Like precursors.
Exactly. Our sources actually give us a few glimpses. For instance, back in the 16th century, you had people like Calvus of Freiburg. He was known as a mining surveyor.
Mining, okay.
Yeah, and he was described as a well-known doctor and mathematician, which kind of suggests that even then, specialized skills in measurement and evaluation, particularly for resource extraction, were recognized and valued.
So the need for precision was there.
It highlights that early societal need for accurate quantification, definitely. And think about medieval cathedral builders, too. They had incredibly specialized stoneworkers, quarrymen, stone cutters, masons, often working under specific rules, specific statutes. It implies a really structured way of managing work and materials, even if they weren't using detailed scale models for everything like we do now.
I see. So the basic need for knowing what you have, what you need, how much work is involved, that was always simmering beneath the surface. But the actual profession, the QS, it really ignited with a specific catalyst.
The Industrial Revolution, that was the game changer.
Why then? What made that era so different that it demanded this completely new professional role?
Well, the 19th century UK was just this incredible testing ground for modern engineering, a period of just unprecedented scale and innovation.
Like what kind of projects?
Think about the railways spreading everywhere. You saw huge advancements in wide-span construction, especially for things like train sheds.
Big open spaces.
Massive. To give you an idea, by 1854, engineers managed a single clear span of 65 meters, that's over 200 feet, for Birmingham's New Street Station.
Wow, in 1854.
Yeah. And at Paddington Station in London, they built triple spans, reaching almost 74 meters, nearly 242 feet across. These were monumentally complex, technically audacious projects for the time.
That is huge. And this is the era of people like Isambard Kingdom Brunel, right? The famous engineer ships, railways.
Exactly. Figures like Brunel. And pushing those engineering boundaries also meant pushing the boundaries of financial management.
Stands to reason.
These enormous, technically intricate projects, the Great Western Railway, the Great Eastern Steamship, they absolutely demanded precise, reliable cost control. The scale was just different. The complexity was different. The financial risk was immense.
Okay.
And this leads perfectly into a fantastic historical anecdote that really highlights why this new professional, the quantity surveyor, became so necessary.
Oh, brilliant. Let's hear it. What happened?
It involves Brunel himself, actually. He was considering an offer for one of his projects, and he asked his assistant how the cost estimate had been calculated.
Okay. Standard question.
But the assistant was apparently quite evasive. Wouldn't give a straight answer. Eventually, the assistant admitted that, quote, no record had been kept of the calculations and that the loose papers on which they had been made had been destroyed.
No record. Loose papers destroyed. Oh, my goodness. For a Brunel scale project, that's terrifying from a financial control perspective.
Absolutely terrifying. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Massive cost overruns, potential bankruptcy, complete chaos.
Yeah.
And this specific incident, this detail, it just perfectly underscores why there was this sudden, urgent need for a transparent and auditable and, crucially, an independent way to manage project costs.
Someone objective.
Exactly. It showed it wasn't enough just to be a brilliant engineer building amazing things. You had to account for the money, objectively, verifiably, with proper documentation. This lack of reliable, independent financial tracking paved the way for the QS to emerge.
Has that independent check and balance.
Precisely. An independent professional, specifically responsible for meticulously measuring the work, valuing it fairly, bringing accountability and clarity to these increasingly complex projects, and ultimately protecting the client's money.
Okay, so it's clear this isn't just, counting bricks after they show up on site or checking invoices after the money is already spent.
Not at all.
It sounds much broader, way more strategic, embedded right through the project. So this is where it gets really practical and interesting for our listener. What are the core functions? What's actually in a quantity surveyor's toolkit today?
You're absolutely right. It's far from just a clerical task. The QS role is incredibly comprehensive. They're essentially responsible for the entire financial health of a construction project, right from the earliest idea, the inception, all the way through to completion and beyond.
Okay, so what are some of those key tools or functions?
Well, probably the most fundamental is detailed cost estimating and budget management. And this isn't a one-off thing.
Not just one number at the start?
No, it's an ongoing dynamic process. It often starts super early, even before detailed drawings exist, using what's called conceptual information.
Like what?
Well, you might use a broad unit, like cost per square foot of floor space, or maybe per cubic foot of usable space to characterize the facility roughly.
A benchmark cost.
Exactly. You multiply that by a price to get a gross estimate. And even at that very early stage, they're aiming for pretty decent accuracy, often around 10%.
That's actually quite impressive with so little detail. So even with just a basic concept, they're giving a realistic cost range.
They are, and it's vital for that early decision-making feasibility studies, But it doesn't stop there, of course. As the design develops, the QS provides ongoing cost management services to ensure that the budget is adhered to.
Keeping it on track.
Constantly. This means setting up and maintaining a uniform cost estimating framework right across all the phases: pre-design, design, bidding, construction. The estimates get progressively more detailed to the level of detail available on the drawings and specifications.
Using the actual plans.
Right. But they also factor in crucial details from notes, even things discussed verbally in meetings, but always confirming that stuff in writing.
Documentation is key.
Absolutely. They might use different methods depending on the stage, maybe a parameter basis by element and project type early on, then shifting to a more deterministic estimate with cost data at a unit price level as the design firms up.
What about those unit prices?
Often they're presented as composite rates, including labor, materials, equipment, all bundled together. but they can also break those down separately for deeper analysis if needed.
Okay.
And importantly, they also factor in cost escalation, the fact that construction costs tend to rise over time.
Inflation, market changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is computed based on a monthly rate from the date of the estimate to the midpoint of construction. And they use reliable industry sources that provide cost escalation rates and forecasting data. It's about building a really robust, future-proofed financial picture.
That is incredibly thorough. It really sounds like they're building a detailed financial model of the project, anticipating changes, looking at it from every angle. And all that detailed measuring must lead to another really key document, right?
It certainly does. All that meticulous quantification work flows directly into another cornerstone of their role, producing the bills of quantities, or BOQs.
BOQ, okay.
Now, the sources don't explicitly define BOQ in detail, but the level of work described the quantity takeoff and unit pricing of the individual components of the trade or element that absolutely points to the kind of breakdown you find in a BOQ.
So what is it, basically?
Think of it as a comprehensive, highly structured document. It lists and quantifies everything required for the project, all the materials, all the labor, all the services, broken down into standardized, measurable items.
The massive shopping list you mentioned.
Exactly, but incredibly detailed and following a specific format. This BOQ is fundamental because it creates a level playing field for bidding. All contractors bid on the exact same quantified scope of work.
Ah, so everyone prices the same list.
Precisely. The QS has to carefully compile all of your self-performed work and subcontracted work into one estimate summary, making sure all the numbers are transferred accurately, often following industry standards like the CSI master format.
CSI master format, that's the standard way of organizing construction specs and costs, right?
Exactly. It provides that common language and structure. So the BOQ makes the bidding process far more transparent, much fairer, and easier to compare apples with apples. It hugely reduces ambiguity.
Which you'd imagine cuts down on disputes later on. Okay, so they produce this BOQ, bids come in based on it. Does the QS then get involved in managing the selection process?
Spot on. Their role extends right into procurement management. They're crucial during the bidding phase and contractor selection.
How so?
Well, they work to ensure that things like building information models, BIM, which we should definitely talk more about, are formally included in the procurement documents if possible.
These digital models of the building.
Yes. And if they can't be formally included contractually, the QS will push for them to be used as reference documents, making sure the order of precedence is clear if there's conflicting information.
Using all available information.
Right. They actively use these BIM models to help communicate the project to the prospective bidders during pre-bid meetings. It's a powerful visual tool. And regardless of the delivery method, design, bid, build, CM at risk, the QS, make sure any specific BIM requirements are clearly stated and considered when selecting the contractor and verifying their capabilities.
So they're ensuring the bids aren't just about price, but also about capability and understanding the project fully?
Exactly. And once the contract is signed and boots are on the ground, their job isn't over either.
No, I guess not. What happens during construction?
Then they move heavily into contract administration. They're not just about the upfront numbers. They actively administer the construction contract throughout the build phase. Their role often includes making provision as to how conflicts between contract documents are to be resolved. And here's a key point highlighting their independence. Often, the evaluation of work performed is specifically done by a quantity surveyor rather than the contract administrator itself.
So they're the ones deciding how much work has actually been completed and is due for payment, not someone else on the project team.
Often, yes. They manage the whole progress payment system, setting up robust procedures to ensure timely payments, but only for acceptable work. This usually involves contractors submitting daily timesheets, detailed receipts for materials and equipment, all needed for rigorous invoice verification.
Checking everything matches up.
Meticulously. And construction projects always have changes, right? Unforeseen issues, order requests.
Change orders. Always.
The QS tracks and manages these change orders, carefully establishing the fair and accurate costs for any claims that arise. They ensure the client isn't being overcharged for modifications or extras.
So they're really the financial gatekeeper during the build. But beyond the numbers and contracts, what about strategic advice? Do they advise the client directly? That independence seems crucial here.
It absolutely is, and it's perhaps one of their most valuable functions,
Okay.
providing impartial financial advice and maintaining strict impartiality. This runs through everything they do.
How does that play out?
They provide impartial financial advice to the client throughout the entire project lifecycle. This isn't just about costs. It includes proactively assessing and analyzing potential risk impacts on the budget.
Financial risks.
Yes, and developing mitigation and contingency plans to handle them. They might even maintain a formal project risk database to track these issues transparently, assigning responsibility to team members to create specific risk mitigation plans.
So they're looking ahead, trying to prevent problems.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And their detachment, their independence from the contractor or the design team is paramount. It guarantees the client receives unbiased, objective financial assessments, free from any potential conflicts of interest a builder or designer might have.
That's a huge benefit for the owner.
It really is. It's about protecting the client's financial interests above all else, giving them the clearest possible view of their investment and the risks involved. It's like having your own dedicated financial watchdog embedded in the project from start to finish.
A financial watchdog. I like that. It really underscores their role. Okay, so it's clear this isn't a job they just dip in and out of. You've painted this picture of continuous involvement. Let's zoom out and trace that through the typical project lifecycle. Where does the QS fit in at each key stage?
Exactly. They are deeply embedded throughout. It's not just a touch point. It's continuous financial guidance. We can definitely walk through the typical phases.
Great. Let's start right at the beginning, the pre-design phase. What are they doing when the project is maybe just a glimmer in the owner's eye before architects even start drawing?
Their role in pre-design is absolutely foundational, really setting the stage. At this very early conceptual point, they help the owner define the overall goals of the project with respect to time and, crucially, budget.
Aligning ambition with reality.
Pretty much. Helping set realistic financial and schedule expectations from the get-go. They also look at various alternative approaches for phasing, sequencing, management, and implementation for the overall schedule, assessing the cost implications of different strategies.
Comparing options early.
Yes, and this is where they kick off that proactive, not reactive, cost management we talked about, preparing those initial conceptual estimates.
The ±10% ones?
Exactly. Those early numbers are vital for feasibility studies, for helping the owner make informed go-no-go decisions before spending a fortune on design. They're essentially helping to map out the project's financial destiny right from day one, laying down a solid financial roadmap.
Okay, so getting ahead of cost issues before they even materialize. That must save huge amounts of rework later. What happens next as the design actually starts to take shape? The design phase.
During the design phase, the QS becomes a really active partner with the design team. They're not just sitting back waiting for finished drawings.
They're in the meetings.
Absolutely. They're providing timely cost advice constantly as the design evolves. This continuous feedback loop is incredibly valuable because, as the sources say, it can significantly reduce the need for redesign because of cost overruns.
Stopping expensive ideas before they get too far down the track.
Precisely. Imagine an architect designed something stunning but incredibly expensive to build the QS flags that cost impact early, allowing the team to adjust before it becomes a major budget problem, requiring costly redesign.
Makes sense.
They prepare those progressively detailed estimates at all the key milestones: conceptual, schematic, design development, preliminary design, and final design document phases. At each stage, they're checking, are we still on budget?
Constant verification.
And they dig deep into the specifications too, not just the drawings. Because, as noted, specs can provide critical supplemental information, which may have significant cost implications.
Like the type of materials.
Exactly. A spec for a high-end imported cladding system versus a standard one might not change the drawing much, but it has a huge cost impact. The QS spots that, quantifies it, and brings it to the table for discussion.
That proactive feedback sounds critical for keeping designs realistic and affordable. Okay, design is progressing. Now we need to actually hire someone to build at the procurement phase. How does the QS manage this crucial financial gateway?
The procurement phase is absolutely where their BOCO expertise comes to the fore. They manage the whole bidding process.
Getting the tenders out?
Right. They push hard for including those building information models, BIM, in the bid documents to give bidders the clearest possible picture. They handle the distribution of bid documents, set up procedures for answering bidder questions fairly, issuing addenda to everyone, ensuring a level playing field information-wise.
Managing the flow of information.
Yes, and they often conduct pre-bid conferences, using the BIM models again to communicate the project to the prospective bidders, walking them through complex areas visually. They also ensure any specific BIM requirements are clear in the potential contract.
So the BOQ is the foundation here.
It absolutely is. That standardized list of all the quantified work means every contractor is pricing the exact same scope. It makes evaluating the bids the tenders much more straightforward, transparent, and fair. It massively reduces the ambiguity that can lead to claims down the line.
Okay, contract awarded. Now for the actual building, the construction phase. I imagine this is where the QS is really hands-on with tracking the money day to day.
You got it. During the construction phase, the QS is constantly monitoring costs, managing those inevitable changes, and administering the payment process. They are the financial guardian on the ground.
Checking the invoices.
And much more. They make sure contractors submit all the required backup for progress payments, daily timesheets, proof of material purchases, verification of work completed to the required standard. It's all about meticulous invoice verification to ensure payments are only for acceptable work actually done.
Protecting the client's cash flow.
Exactly. They track actual spending against the planned cash flow projections, flagging any deviations early. And they stay deeply involved in risk management throughout construction, tracking those identified risks, making sure the mitigation plans are actually being implemented, and adapting to new issues that crop up on site.
So constantly adjusting and monitoring. And then finally the project's finished. Keys handed over. What about the post-construction phase? Does the QS just pack up and leave?
Well, their active cost management for that specific construction contract typically winds down. But the information they've gathered is still incredibly valuable.
How so?
The sources mention the concept of as-built documented miles and databases be linked together and submitted at the end of the project, especially in a BIM context. The QS plays a key role in ensuring this final package of financial and physical data is accurate and complete.
The final record.
Yes. This data, the final costs, quantities, specifications linked to the as-built model, is invaluable for the owner's future operations and maintenance, for facility management, even for planning future renovations or benchmarking costs for new projects.
So it informs the building's whole life cycle.
Exactly. It aligns perfectly with that broader QS perspective of benefits realization, ensuring the project delivers its intended long-term value. So while their day-to-day construction oversight ends, the comprehensive financial and quantitative legacy they create provides value for years, even decades, informing future spending and strategy.
Okay, this quantity surveyor model sounds incredibly thorough. Deeply integrated, continuous, independent financial oversight. It feels very structured. But as you mentioned earlier, how does this compare to how things usually work here in the United States? It feels like we approach construction cost management quite differently, doesn't it?
That's a really important comparison to make, and yes, you're right. The U.S. system generally operates differently. Many of the specific functions handled by a dedicated QS in other parts of the world are often distributed among different players here.
So we don't typically have that one single independent professional whose sole job is cost, preparing BOQs, acting as that impartial financial referee throughout.
Not usually under that specific title, quantity surveyor, with that same kind of independent mandate and often chartered status you see elsewhere. In the more traditional U.S. model, cost estimating and contract administration are often handled by the general contractor or a consultant.
The GC does the estimating.
Often, yes, particularly for their own bid. And a key player who takes on many cost management responsibilities, especially from the owner's side, is the construction manager, the CM.
Ah, the CM.
The Construction Management Association of America, the CMAA, their standards clearly outline the CM's role in providing ongoing cost management services during the design phase, preparing estimates, developing that uniform cost estimating framework across the project. So there's definite overlap in function.
So is a U.S. construction manager basically doing the same job as a QS, just with a different title?
They perform many similar functions, definitely, and often with a high degree of skill. A U.S. CM also typically manages procurement, handles bid documents, helps select contractors. They're seen as the central information hub for the project and are often in the best position to manage the high-value BIM process. They even have a responsibility to educate the owner and the team about BIM.
Okay, sounds very involved.
It is. But a key difference is that the CM's specific contractual duties and what the owner expects can vary significantly, especially depending on how much BIM is being used by the whole team. So the CM scope isn't always as standardized or consistently independent in the same way as a chartered QS role often is.
And their relationship to the owner is different.
Often, yes. The CM typically acts as the owner's representative, managing the general contractor and the overall process. They work for the owner. A QS, while hired by the owner, often has a more distinct, independent role focused purely on measuring and valuing the work impartially, sometimes reporting separately from the main project management structure.
Interesting distinction. And how do the general contractors themselves fit into the cost estimating puzzle in the U.S. model?
The GC is usually responsible for putting together their total bid price. This means compiling costs for all of your self-performed work and subcontracted work into one estimate summary. They then add their markups for taxes, general overhead, and profit to come up with the final bid. They're the ones actually managing the build for specific things like, say, waterproofing systems, either doing it themselves or hiring a specialized subcontractor.
Right.
But here's a really significant difference highlighted in the sources regarding subcontractors. In the U.S. system, subs often have no contractual obligations to the contractor regarding their prices at the time of bidding. Their final agreements, their subcontracts, are not executed until after the contractor has signed the contract for construction with the owner.
Hold on, so the GC might submit their main bid to the owner before having legally binding prices locked in with all their subcontractors.
That can often be the case, yes. It introduces a different dynamic in terms of cost certainty and risk allocation compared to a system where bids might be based on a detailed, pre-agreed BOQ that subcontractors also price against more formally before the main contract is awarded.
Wow, okay. That sounds like a fundamental difference in how risk and cost certainty are handled. So, stepping back, what are the main implications of these differences between the QS model and the typical U.S. approach? What does it really mean for an owner trying to manage their project?
Probably the most significant difference, the one that really defines the QS role, comes down to impartiality. That core principle of providing independent and impartial financial advice directly to the client is key.
That's separation.
Yes. In the U.S. system, where the general contractor is often handling the primary cost estimating and contract administration for their own work and payments, there can be at least a perceived lack of that fully independent financial arbitration.
Even with a CM involved.
Well, CMs provide an incredibly valuable service, absolutely. But as we discussed, their specific role and contractual setup can vary. Sometimes they function more as the owner's agent managing the contractor, rather than providing that distinct, independent cost valuation and financial reporting function that is the QS's sole focus, separate from the day-to-day construction management. It's a subtle but important difference in emphasis and reporting structure.
So an owner in the U.S. might not always have that dedicated third-party financial expert whose only job is to look at the numbers objectively, completely separate from the people actually building it. That does feel like a different risk profile.
It can be perceived that way, yes. Another key difference often lies in the transparency of cost data. The U.S. system relies heavily on the contractor's overall bid price. Competitive bidding absolutely provides a market check on the total cost. But it doesn't always inherently provide the owner with the same level of granular, itemized cost breakdown and independent verification before the contract is signed, compared to what a QS provides through a detailed bill of quantities. That BOQ dissects the project into all its component costs upfront, allowing for really detailed apples-to-apples comparison of bids based on agreed quantities.
So the internal makeup of the cost might be less transparent to the owner in the U.S. model.
Potentially, yes. It's not necessarily a flaw, just a different approach. The U.S. system often prioritizes having a single point of responsibility with the GC for delivering the project at a certain price. The QS system often prioritizes independent verification and detailed transparency of the costs making up that price. Both aim for cost control, just via slightly different mechanisms and professional structures, each with its own advantages and disadvantages.
Okay, that clarifies the distinctions. Now, it really sounds like being a QS requires this incredibly specific and deep skill set: construction economics, contracts, law, risk. How do people actually gain that level of expertise? Is there a specific, rigorous training path?
That's a great question. And yes, what's really central to the QS profession, especially where it's most established, is that emphasis on rigorous training and demanding professional standards. It's absolutely fundamental to building that expertise and earning the trust required for their impartial role.
So university degrees?
Typically, yes.
Yes.
While our sources don't map out the exact curriculum, they talk about needing professional services that demand specific competence, that requires professional and technical knowledge and capabilities that meets recognized standards of performance. This absolutely points towards formalized, intensive education, often at the university level. Think degrees focusing on quantity surveying, construction economics, maybe civil engineering with a cost focus, construction law.
And I've often heard the term chartered quantity surveyor, especially in the UK context. What does chartered actually mean?
Ah, the chartered designation. That's highly significant and widely respected globally. It implies a very high level of proven professional qualification, competence, and ethical standing.
How do you get it?
It's usually achieved by meeting the stringent requirements of major professional bodies, like the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, or RICS, which is probably the best known. This typically involves not just getting the right university degree, but then completing a period of structured, supervised practical experience, often several years, called the Assessment of Professional Competence, or APC.
Like an apprenticeship?
Sort of, but at a professional level. And then you have to pass rigorous final assessment interviews and exams. It's designed to ensure a consistent, high standard of competence, practical experience, and strict adherence to a professional code of ethics.
So it's a tough standard to meet.
It is. It ensures they have that analytical rigor, that mathematical imagination maybe, that ability to deal with complex data and provide sound financial judgment. They really are highly skilled financial specialists for the built environment.
That makes complete sense. Now, thinking about the modern world, construction is getting incredibly complex, isn't it? New technologies, massive push for sustainability. How are these big trends impacting the QS profession, or maybe construction cost management more broadly, everywhere?
Oh, these modern influences are having a huge impact. Building information modeling, BIM, is probably one of the biggest game changers.
The digital model.
Exactly. BIM is this whole process where you create and manage digital representations of the physical and functional characteristics of a facility. It's not just a 3D picture, it's a rich database of information that evolves throughout the project.
How does it help a QS?
Massively. Key BIM features directly support QS work, like automated quantity takeoff. The model knows how many doors there are, how much wall area, the volume of concrete, because that information is embedded.
So it does the counting for them.
To a large extent, yes. It can automatically drive geometry, assign material properties linked to specifications. This drastically speeds up the estimating process, makes it far more accurate, and allows for dynamic cost updates almost instantly if the design changes. It reduces those tedious design analysis feedback cycles and is proving very cost-effective.
So BIM makes their core job faster and more accurate, freeing them up for other things.
Precisely. It allows them to spend less time on manual measurement and more time on higher-level analysis, risk assessment, value engineering, cost option comparisons, advising the client strategically.
Interesting. What about other trends like lean construction? Does that affect the QS?
Lean construction concepts, like the last planner system, are focused on improving workflow, reducing waste, making the actual construction process more efficient on site.
Right.
But it's important to note, as the sources point out, that the overall project cost and schedule targets, budgets and completion dates, are set outside the last planner system.
Ah, so lean manages the execution, but someone still needs to set and manage the budget.
Exactly. Lean helps deliver the project more efficiently within the budget, but it reinforces the need for dedicated cost professionals like QSs to establish, monitor, and control those overarching financial targets in the first place. The two work hand in hand.
Got it. And the other huge one, sustainable construction, green buildings, LED, net zero. That must add whole new layers of cost complexity.
Absolutely enormous layers. Green building initiatives, LED, Green Globes, the Living Building Challenge, they all introduce new and often complex cost factors.
Like what?
Achieving specific certifications, like LEED Gold, or meeting really demanding requirements, like the Living Building Challenge's mandate for 100% of stormwater be managed on-site, often involves higher upfront costs for materials, specialized systems, or innovative designs, maybe advanced insulation, solar panels, rainwater harvesting systems.
Some of it cost more initially.
Often, yes. And estimating and managing these costs accurately requires specialized knowledge. The QS's expertise in whole building design, looking at reducing energy costs, operational costs, maintenance costs over the long term, as well as environmental impact, becomes critical here.
So they do life cycle costing.
Exactly. They can analyze the trade-offs, comparing higher initial green investments against potential long-term operational savings, helping the client make informed decisions that balance sustainability goals with budget realities. It's a crucial role in making green building financially viable.
Okay, so with all this evolution complex projects, BIM, sustainability, are we seeing a convergence? Is North America, even without using the QS title widely, starting to adopt more of these QS-like practices?
That's a really perceptive question, and I think the answer is yes, absolutely. We are seeing a convergence of practice, definitely.
How so?
Well, while the job title quantity surveyor isn't common in the U.S., look at the detailed cost management functions described for construction managers in those CMAA standards we mentioned. There's significant overlap. Many CMs are performing roles very similar to a QS, especially now with the widespread adoption of BIM for automating quantity takeoff and enabling much more detailed cost analysis throughout the design process.
So the tools are pushing convergence.
The tools, the complexity, the client demands, it's all pushing in that direction. Owners increasingly want greater cost certainty, more transparency, better risk management. The sheer complexity of modern projects necessitates more sophisticated financial control. And advanced technologies like BIM naturally support these more rigorous QS-like methodologies.
So the functions are becoming more common, even if the job title isn't.
Exactly. The U.S. system is evolving towards more comprehensive, often more independent cost control approaches. The underlying principles, rigorous measurement, independent valuation, proactive financial management, life cycle costing their value is becoming universally recognized as essential, regardless of what you call the person doing it. North America is definitely adopting many of these core tenets.
Which brings us towards the end of our deep dive today. We've really journeyed into the world of the quantity surveyor, this profession born out of the intense pressures of the 19th century UK industrial boom.
Yeah, evolving into this impartial, independent financial guardian for construction projects in many parts of the world.
Yeah.
It really highlights how critical that financial stewardship is in such a complex, high-stakes industry.
We've looked at their toolkit detailed estimating, those crucial bills of quantities, procurement management, contract administration, all delivered with that layer of impartiality.
And we've contrasted that with the typically more distributed responsibilities in the U.S. system involving GCs and CMs. And importantly, we've seen how modern forces like BIM and sustainability are pushing cost management practices everywhere to become more sophisticated.
And for you listening, understanding this profession, the QS, it really offers a powerful insight, doesn't it? It shows how different societies, different systems can organize expertise to solve the same fundamental problem. How do you build these incredibly complex, expensive things while keeping a firm, objective grip on the budget?
It really underscores the value of that specialized independent knowledge. Getting unbiased advice in an industry that, let's be honest, can often be plagued by cost overruns, delays, and disputes. Good financial management is just as crucial as good engineering.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. As construction projects keep getting more complex, as the drive for sustainability becomes even more critical, demanding ever more sophisticated financial analysis, and as digital tools like BIM become ubiquitous, how much more integrated, how much more specialized will construction cost management need to become everywhere?
Yeah, and perhaps what could the global construction industry gain by maybe embracing more universally recognized standards, maybe more clearly defined independent professional roles for this absolutely critical financial expertise? Is there a best of both worlds approach emerging?
Something to definitely ponder as we continue to shape and build our world. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.